Electricity bills in Texas are skyrocketing. According to the Texas Tribune, many customers are paying at least 50% more than they did this time last year. The report says that the high costs are tied to the price of natural gas.
Nearly the entire western half of the country is dealing with temperatures 10 to 15 degrees above normal, as some parts of Texas could see the heat index topping 110, straining the already fragile power grid.
The Texas power grid is stressed out again, but this time it's because operators were caught off guard by the fact that it gets hot in Texas in the summer. I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and here in Houston, we've been chilling in the triple digits pretty regularly lately. Today's a little bit cooler because we just got some rain, but I don't actually expect this reprieve to last very long. Why don't I expect it to be the case? Well, probably because it's Texas in the summertime. It's always hot. Triple-digit temperatures aren't unusual. Texas summer is getting increasingly hotter and longer each year isn't unusual. But the people who run our power grid, the same people who refuse to connect it to the national grids and the same people who refuse to enforce any maintenance on the grid, didn't see the heat coming. CEO Brad Jones said that over at ERCOT, which by the way ironically stands for the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, they used the summer of 2011 as a benchmark for bad, hot summers. Apparently it was a really bad one. It's just always hot here though, so every year they're over there asking, oh, is this 2011 again? Well, lo and behold, this year might be 2011 again. So a few things. The first one is definitely me reading maybe too far into things, but it feels like using 2011 as a benchmark, even if it was a hotter summer than usual, is almost dismissive of the fact that summers are getting hotter and longer due to the effects of climate change. 2011 may have been the worst, but the last decade was still very hot. Climate Central, a nonprofit that studies climate science, reports that the vast majority of cities in the United States have seen increases in average temperatures since the 1970s. To explain this, Director Andrew Pershing said, globally, this blanket of extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is radiating heat back at us. Another factor is increased urbanization. As cities grow and expand outwards, more trees and green spaces are cut down and replaced with asphalt and tar, like that one song, They Paved Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot. Researchers have found that growing cities have seen greater increases in average temperatures, a phenomenon called the urban heat island effect. But Texas leaders won't hear anything against their precious fossil fuel industry. Remember, the grid failed back in the winter of 2021, not because of its failing and decrepit infrastructure, not because of poor leadership, and not even because the majority of the outages could actually be blamed on natural gas, but because of the windmills. The same windmills that supply green energy to Nordic and Scandinavian countries. And even if the windmills weren't working optimally, it was because they weren't properly winterized as they should have been by the aforementioned poor leadership. Now, to make matters worse, ERCOT officials are now falling back on fossil fuels. According to the Houston Chronicle, quote, ERCOT has called on thermal generators, think natural gas, coal, and nuclear, to run as much as possible, including having some humming in the background just in case their power is needed in tight grid conditions. And I'm sure all of the oil and gas executives that have infiltrated the Texas state government are thrilled. And to top everything off, and this is the part that really irks most of us here in Texas, ERCOT wants us to conserve our energy in our homes to save our grid. But we weren't the ones who got us into this mess. We weren't the ones who decided to screw over entire populations so that energy tycoons could get richer. We weren't the ones to deregulate the energy industry, and we weren't the ones who chose to cut ourselves off from the national grids to evade oversight and federal regulation. But now we're the ones who have to go without. We're the ones who keep getting hailed as heroes for conserving so much that we were able to keep the lights on, even though it never should have been our responsibility to do so. ERCOT has the word reliability in its name, but its best method of ensuring power to Texans is to just beg us to use less of it. With the polar vortex, sure, we can throw them a bone and say that the freeze of 2021 was unusual for a southern state. Still shouldn't have turned out the way it did, and it was definitely their fault that people froze to death in their homes and that Texans are still paying higher energy costs every month because of it. But for the sake of argument, whatever, Texans don't do cold. But Texans do heat. It's kind of our thing. We all know heat, the grid knows heat. Why doesn't the CEO of the Electric Reliability Council of Texas not know heat? Whatever. This is all George W. Bush's fault, and it's just another thing that I will never forgive him for. And that's it for me. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and follow me over on IG and TikTok at YazK. YazK has 5 Z's in it.